Mark, can you hear me? Mark or Helmer?
Yeah. He's looking at it like,
Yeah, loud and clear. Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, can you hear me? I can hear you.
Mark, can you respond? Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you.
Yes, I'm speaking right now. Can you hear me?
oh, okay.
I can hear.
Yeah, so
thanks.
Mark, can you say the funds and whatnot?
Hello? 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 This is Mark. This is Mark.
I can hear you, Mark.
Thank you.
One more time.
They saw the houses.
Essa and Helmer, can you hear me?
Yeah. But it is recording, okay. Oh. Tell your mom.
Oh, yeah? That's fair.
So 2 questions answered.
You went to a Home Depot Christmas party? Or just Justice Center, yeah. Some good you into that. He's not a president, right? Some more chair or whatever. That's a good deal. So Japanese chamber, we know they have a closet on home, which is actually a converted garage where the police can go in.
Then can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Essa. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. I can hear you. Okay, cool. Okay. Sorry.
Testing. So can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep, loud and clear.
thank you.
Okay, we're online. We have some more folks coming. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation regular Board of Directors meeting. Today is December 12th, 2024. It is now 9:02 a.m. First item is to take a roll call. Essa, do it.
Today in attendance, we have Chair Gary Mackler, Secretary Sean Sasaki, and Directors Jason Bradshaw, Don Mende, Nick Kimura, and Designee Mary Alice Evans.
6 to 7, we have a quorum. Before we go on, I'd like to ask Director Bradshaw, since you're attending remotely, is there anyone with you where you are?
Just by myself. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Before we move into today's meeting agenda, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Executive Director, Gene Covey.
Thank you, Chair. I regret to inform you that one that you know, Chris Woodard, who was a chief planner, passed away last week. It was very unexpected. Chris, as you know, he worked for HHFDC for over 10 years. He started off here as a property manager with some great work in Whitewater Valley, managed the multifamily portfolio sale while he was here. For the past 2 years, he served as our chief planner. And he did an excellent job as our chief planner. The things that he did was acquisition of the Hagai property, also the Whitewater lease rent negotiations, managing out of our legislative work. He really was a talented person. He's one of the few people that worked for the state that could have managed that Hagai acquisition as quickly as he did, while still juggling his other duties. Someone that I miss, that agency misses, and there's a no loss for us.
To a moment of silence.
If we could.
Sure. So on behalf of the Board of Directors, I would like to extend our condolences to the Woodard family and also, of course, to the HHFDC staff, Ohana. I know it's a huge loss for all of you, and our sincerest condolences. Truly miss Chris. Anyone here from staff that would like to say a few words? If you'd like, I could give you that opportunity. Anybody? Okay, if not, we'll go on to the approval of minutes. This is item 2A. This is a special meeting minutes from November 19th, 2024 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve? We have a second. Second, thank you. Are there any corrections or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next is item 3A of our agenda, and this is to authorize an application. Oh, okay, yeah, we Stan, before I'm going to ask Gordon to come up and explain the ground rules for public testimony. We will ask for testimony on each of the agenda items today.
Morning, board members and members of the audience. I'm Gordon Pang, HHFDC Housing Information Officer. Members of the public, we kindly request that you write your name legibly on the attendance sheet that is outside as you enter the meeting room. This will help us maintain a better record. Separately, anyone in the public who wishes to present oral testimony today should also sign up on the testifier sheet. You may also indicate your intent to do so by signaling the chair. Your testimony must be related to an item on the board agenda, and your name will be called when the item comes up on the agenda. We ask that before you begin your testimony, you identify yourself and spell your name in a clear manner for the record. After 3 minutes, you will hear this sound, which I hopefully figured out. All right. So you have 15 seconds after hearing that sound to conclude your testimony. Please keep in mind that this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts with the board. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to respond. If you wish to submit written testimony, instructions on submitting written testimony can be found on the front page of this agenda under the section titled Public Testimony. Mahalo for your cooperation.
Thanks, Gordon. Okay, so the agenda item we're on is 3A, and this is to authorize an application for exemptions from statutes, ordinances, and rules pursuant to section 201H-38 Hawaii Revised Statutes, and approve, one, the certification of villages of Kapolei JV LLC or other successor entity approved by the executive director as an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-307-24 Hawaii Administrative Rules. Secondly, the project proposal. Third, execution of development documents for approved exemptions. And fourth, proceeding as a state affordable housing project under the governor's emergency proclamation relating to affordable housing as approved by the executive director for the Leiwili Kapolei, also known as the Northwest Corner Kapolei Mixed Use for Sale and Rental Project located in Kapolei, Oahu, TMK number 19-1-016230. Is there a motion to approve this for action?
So moved.
And
Second.
we have a second. Before you go on, Stan, I'm going to ask, is there anyone who would like to offer testimony on this agenda item? Hearing none, I will turn this over to Mr. Fujimoto.
Good morning,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Chairman, members of the board. Dan Fujimoto with Development Section. HHFDC is the owner in fee simple of approximately 26.5 acres at the southeastern corner of the intersection of Fort Barrett Road and Farrington Highway at the northwest corner of HHFDC's villages of Kapolei and Kapolei, Oahu. The Hawaii State Veterans Home Project completed construction in 2024 on approximately 7 acres at the eastern corner of the parcel. The balance of the site is approximately 19.4 acres and is vacant. After an RFP process on March 14, 2024, this board approved Ikena Development LLC and the Michaels Organization as the developers, and their base proposal of 770 affordable units and a higher density alternative of 900 affordable units and 95,000 square feet of commercial space for the balance of the northwest corner parcel. In August 2024, HHFDC received an application for 201H exemptions for a 900-unit project in 2 scenarios for the northwest corner parcel. The 2 scenarios show a range of affordability depending upon the financing approved for the project. Except for 6 managers units, all of the units are affordable at 140% or below the HUD AMI. In scenario 1, phase 1 of 344 rental units are based upon low-income housing tax credit financing with affordable units at 30%, 50%, and 60% or below the AMI. Phase 2 of 484 rental units are based upon rental housing revolving fund Tier 2 financing with affordable units at 80% and 100% or below the AMI. Scenario 2 is based upon Tier 2 financing for all 828 rental units at 80% and 100% or below the AMI. Phase 3 in both scenarios is 72 for sale units at 110% to 140% or below the AMI. Phase one in both scenarios consists of 2 residential buildings of between 2 to 5 stories over a single level of parking. Phase two consists of 2 12-story buildings with administrative offices and retail on the ground floor, parking on levels 2 and 3, residential units and a courtyard on level 4, and residential units on levels 5 to 12. Phase three consists of 72 for sale units in 2 3-story buildings. A total of approximately 95,000 square feet of commercial space is located on the first floor of the buildings in phase two and in 11 standalone buildings towards Franklin Highway. HHFDC accepted the application for processing, and the developer forwarded project information to the agencies listed on Exhibits G attached to the action for review and comment. The list of the requested exemptions are listed on the attached Exhibit H. Agencies' comments are listed on the attached Exhibit I. None of the exemptions affect health and safety or contravenes any safety standards, tariffs, or rates and fees approved by the Public Utilities Commission or the various boards of water supply. The application also includes a request to proceed under the governor's emergency proclamation relating to affordable housing and suspension of section 201H-38A3 HRS that allows approval of 208 exemptions for a state affordable housing project by the county planning director in lieu of the county council. On December 6, 2024, the governor issued the 10th proclamation relating to affordable housing. HHFDC believes that the project qualifies to proceed under the 10th proclamation. Therefore, HHFDC proposes to submit the approved 201H exemptions to the Director of the Department of the Planning and Permitting of the City and County of Honolulu in lieu of the Honolulu City Council for approval pursuant to the 10th proclamation. The applicant is Villages of Kapolei JV LLC, and HHFDC believes that the applicant is an affiliate of the developer approved by this board on March 14, 2024. This for action requests approval of the following for the Villages of Kapolei Northwest Corner in Kapolei, Oahu, substantially as described in this for action. Villages of Kapolei JV LLC or other successor entity approved by the executive director as an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-307-24 HAR. Application for exemptions from statutes, ordinances, and rules pursuant to section 201H-38 HRS. And proceeding with the requested suspension of laws under the 10th proclamation as approved by the executive director. The developers are here, Daniel Simonich of the Michaels Organization, and Chris and Keegan Flaherty of Ikenakia Development LLC. And we are available for questions.
Directors, do you have questions for staff or the developer reps? Anyone? I'd like to ask a question, but I think it's more for the developer. One of you can come up, I'll. Withdraws, yeah, so in your phase two financing proposal, you're identifying tier two revolving fund money. Knowing that it's subject to a legislative appropriation, do you have an alternate plan if those funds are not available when you need for your second phase?
Yeah, that's a great question. My name is Daniel Simish. I'm with the Michaels Development Organization. Obviously, this is a large site with a lot of units, and so we're looking to have it all be affordable, but with a diversity of affordability. So the first phase, we are really focused on the low income to start. The later phases, we'll have to work with staff, with the legislature to try to secure and set up a position for the workforce housing funding to allow for the future phases to hit that affordability.
Okay.
Actually, I have a comment for the developers. Is that all right, Chair?
Sure, absolutely.
I like the fact that you've got mixed income plans here because we don't want to see a concentration of poverty again. And I like the fact that you have a scenario that does include for sale. This is a question. To what extent this is, you have for sale in what, scenario 2 or both scenarios? Potential scenarios.
Proposes phase 3, but I think it could happen at any time. And for the for sale component, I think probably a developer better.
Ouch.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm Chris Flaherty with the Kanikea Development. And with respect to the for sale component, we're trying to run a parallel track with the low income housing tax credit project, depending on whether it's successful in an award. And to go back on the financing question with respect to if tier 2 funds are not available, we're also looking at particularly like it's not particularly available currently, but we're exploring quite possibly like a situation where if the state can use its credit authorization to back potentially some debt, that might be something we can look at in the future. We're talking to the ledge to see if that might be a possibility as well. So
So a private bond supported by state.
correct.
Well, so we've seen over the more recent years, resistance to for sale units that have affordability clawback strings and 10-year limit on resale without a shared equity provision. How do you plan to market those units to be successful in buyers?
Well, the development agreement is very prescriptive in the way that we can market those and to what extent we can make them marketable to the right tenants. We're hoping to put the pricing in a position where it will be marketable, and so we're hoping to attract the quality buyers with attractive pricing and quality product as well. It is a challenge. Obviously, we'll have to see that, I don't want to get in a position where we're having vacant units for sale. And so it'll be tough, but we feel we can get there.
Thank you, Chair.
I just had another question. In your reading through the 4 action, your base proposal included 720 affordables, and you're increasing your density to 100. What drove that decision?
We were trying to get as much density as we could at the request of HHFDC as well. So, and the governor's office. And so we're trying to be mindful of the fact that we need units. So obviously, I think to your point that we don't want to have a high density of low income housing tax credit product there. Obviously, the workforce housing, 140% AMI and below is very important. Whether we can do the 900 units is going to obviously depend on what financing looks like, what interest rates look like. So,
anyone else questions? Okay, thank you. If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're gonna go on next to item 3B of today's agenda. Which is to authorize an application for exemptions from statutes, ordinances, and rules pursuant to section 201H-38 Hawaii Revised Statutes and approve one, the certification of HCDC Hawaii Development LLC or other successor entity approved by the executive director as an eligible developer pursuant to section 15-307-24 Hawaii Administrative Rules. Secondly, the project proposal. Third, execution of development documents for approved exemptions. And fourth, proceeding as a state affordable housing proclamation under the governor's emergency proclamation relating to affordable housing as approved by the executive director for the Ka'ahumanu Homes Redevelopment Project located in Honolulu, Oahu, TMK number 11-5-024001. Is there a motion?
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay, before we present, I'm going to ask if there's any testimony from the public on this agenda item. Hearing none, I do. Oh, is there? You have one person raising their hand. Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Clemente.
Oh, thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Executive Director, Mark Anthony Clemente on behalf of the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters. I want to stand by my written testimony in strong support of this development and of this developer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll turn it over.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. My name is Michelle Leong, and I assisted in the review of this application. So in September 2024, the developer submitted an application for 201H exemptions for the proposed Ka'ahumanu Homes redevelopment project. At a glance, the project involves the phased demolition of the existing 19 two-story townhouse buildings and the phased development of a mixed-use project comprised of 1,550 new affordable rental and affordable and market leasehold for sale residential units. Approximately 12,641 square feet of social civic space, 7,295 square feet of commercial space, and 86,714 square feet of recreation space, as well as 1,780 long-term residential and commercial parking spaces and 950 bicycle parking spaces, all to be built within 6 phases or buildings on an approximately 7.37 acre property owned by the State Hawaii Public Housing Authority, or HPHA. The project is one of 9 public housing properties that the HPHA intends to redevelop as a part of their Kalimomi redevelopment portfolio. The developer proposing the project is HCDC Hawaii Development LLC, with Form Partners as the co-developer. High Ridge Casa Development Company LLC is the managing member of the developer and was selected as the master developer by HPHA for the Kalimomi redevelopment. So just to dive a little deeper in the details, phase 1 includes a 28-story building with 319 rental units affordable to households between 30 and 60% of the AMI and 2 managers units. Phase 2 includes a 21-story building with 190 rental units affordable to households between 30 to 60% of the AMI with 2 managers units as well. And phases 1 and 2 will share a 6-story building podium containing commercial and civic space as well as parking. Phase 3 includes a 20-story building with 237 rental units affordable to households between 30 and 60% of the AMI and 2 managers units, inclusive of a 5-story building podium containing civic space and parking. Phase 4 includes a 27-story building with 347 rental units affordable to households between 80 and 100% of the AMI, and 2 managers units. Phase 5 includes a 24-story building with 203 rental units affordable to households between 30 and 60% of the AMI and 2 managers units. And phases 4 and 5 will also share a 6-story building podium containing commercial, civic space, and parking. Lastly, phase 6 includes a 22-story building with 244 residential units, inclusive of a 6-story building podium containing parking. So for phase 6, there are 2 scenarios being proposed. The developer's preference is a for sale scenario in which all 244 units will be offered as leasehold for sale, with 147 affordable units and 97 market units. However, if the for sale scenario is infeasible, then a rental scenario will be explored, with 242 units of being affordable and 2 managers units. The AMI levels presented in this for action are based on the for sale scenario for phase 6. Phases 1 through 6 all include a mix of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Additional details regarding the breakdown in unit type and affordability mix, retail, civic, and recreation space, and parking counts for phases 1 through 6 are included in section 2 of the for action. Renderings are in Exhibit C, and selected preliminary drawings are in Exhibit D. Sections 3D through G of the for action show the proposed budget and sources of funds for phases 1 and 2, which are based on LIHTC financing. The proposed budgets and financing structures for phases 3 to 6 are to be determined. On October 29th, 2024, HHFDC issued a determination that the project is exempt from the preparation of an environmental assessment. A notice of that determination was published in the environmental notice on November 8th, in 2024. A list of the requested 2-1H exemptions for the project is in Exhibit G. The requested exemptions generally include exemptions and deferrals of various county fees, an exemption from the county's park dedication requirements, and exemptions from the underlying A1 or low density apartment zoning district to allow commercial, social, and civic uses, to allow an increase of density, to allow an increase in maximum building height, and to allow fewer than the minimum number of required loading spaces. The developer has also requested to proceed as a state affordable housing project under the governor's emergency proclamation relating to affordable housing, and is seeking to utilize certain suspensions under the proclamation, including the suspension of HRS section 201H-38A3 to allow the 2-1H exemptions to be approved with modifications, or disapproved by the DPP director rather than the city council. Staff notes that the 9th proclamation expired on December 9th, 2024, which is included as Exhibit J, and the 10th proclamation was approved on December 6th, 2024. There appears to be no difference between the 2 proclamations. HHFDC believes that the project qualifies to proceed as a state affordable housing project under the 10th proclamation. A full list of suspensions of laws being requested under the 10th proclamation are listed in Exhibit H. So after HHFDC accepted the application for processing, the developer shared the application with the agencies and elected officials listed in Exhibit F for review and comment. A brief discussion of some significant comments are included in section 3.0 of the for action. A comprehensive summary of the comments received is listed in Exhibit I. Staff notes that the State Department of Transportation and the County Department of Planning and Permitting commented on the project's compliance with the Federal Aviation Administration regulations. While the developer is requesting an exemption from the A1 zoning district to allow for an increase in maximum building heights, HHFDC will not approve any exemptions from federal or state laws relating to the construction of projects near airports. And thus the project will have to comply with FAA's building height limits. To conclude, staff respectfully requests that the HHFDC board authorize the recommendations subject to conditions listed in section 4 of the for action, which includes authorizing the HCDC Hawaii Development LLC as an eligible developer, the project proposal and requested exemptions, and the project as a state affordable housing project under the 10th proclamation. The developer and co-developer are here today, and they have a brief PowerPoint to share and are available. Yeah. He mentioned that it was right. Oh, okay. That it is gonna be a condition. Okay. Yeah, so it's not currently listed in the 4 action, but we are gonna add an additional condition to approval, which is that the developer will have to comply with FAA's building height limit regulations. And I believe the developer did submit a form, and as of yesterday, I think they have not heard back yet. So, yes. That concludes.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions for Michelle? Okay, maybe we can, I see Mr. Mohana in the back here. Did you want to do your presentation? Or do you have someone? Yeah, I do have one question on the project. And looking through the proposed budgets for phase 1 and I believe also phase 2. You have a line item in both of those budgets for acquisition at $2.5 million. And given that this is public land owned by HPHA, could you clarify what the acquisition costs are for and who they're going to be paid to?
Good morning, Mo Mohana, Highbridge Costa. That's a lease incentive payment, and in situations where you have a soft lease, and especially in the beginning of the term when the available cash flow coming after the waterfall. So you're paying your operating expenses, you're paying your deferred developer fees, your 75% is being swept for typically an RHRF loan. The available cash flow is minimal. Therefore, they typically, when we have a land lease by an agency or government, they want a percentage of that cash flow. And because the percentage is so low in the beginning, that the net present value is below what the property is worth, we do an upfront payment of a land lease incentive payment in the front to make it feasible for the landowner, so that there's a return on the property.
Like a operating deficit?
It's not,
or is it different from?
it's more of a net present value calculation. So if I project the total cash flow, the first 15 years is so weak because you start at a 1.15 debt coverage or higher. And when you sweep the rest of the waterfall all the way down to 75% for the RHRF, the remaining payment is very low. So over the first 15 years, and sorry, I'll go back to the deferred developer fee. If you have a deferred developer fee, that sweeps 100% of the cash flow, leaving nothing to the bottom line. Then it goes to the RHRF, then it goes there. So to offset that negative, when we take that 15 years and take it beyond, and I do a net present value, it becomes way below what the property value is worth. So to offset that and bring it to somewhere reasonable, we create an upfront payment, at the least incentive payment, that drops into the net present value calculation. And we do it when you do a big payment in the front, it helps settle that net present value deficit that we'd otherwise face.
That's payable to?
It would be able to the land seller HPHA, correct?
Is that HPHA?
Yes.
That's my only question. Anyone else have a question? Okay, well, if you'd like to go ahead and make the presentation.
I'd like to introduce our co-partner, Google Reform Partners. Lead the presentation. I'll start the first part. We'll explain our team. Myself, we have also our project management team, Sam Rico, sitting there. We'll go through our team redevelopment update of where we are, talking about our resident and our redevelopment process and schedule. The partners in this transaction are Hawaii Public Housing Authority, ourselves, Highbridge Costa, and Form Partners. Chris Stuker sitting next to me here. Hawaii Public Housing Authority has selected us under the Kalimomi RFQ to develop 9 targeted sites and additional 6 alternate sites. They have a large inventory across the nation that is old and in need of redevelopment. This specific initiative is looking to replace existing about 1,200 units and create an additional 10,000 new units across these 9+ sites. They're focusing with us as a developer to create, not only replace the existing assets they have, but a lot of the sites that are 78 years old, the surroundings have changed, and they're looking to really capitalize on the state's land by creating more housing in the current environment of the housing crisis that we all know about in the state of Hawaii. Highbridge Costa is ourselves, as you know, is a developer of affordable housing with a significant focus on Hawaii. Multiple projects completed, some in lease up, some under construction, and quite a bit in planning. But our focus is long-term affordable housing, whether in the form of LIHTC, which gives you the 0 to 60%, or under new HHFDC rules, 0 to 80% under income averaging. Missing middle, which we're also working with the state of Hawaii HHFDC on our Pohokaina Commons and Kaka'ako to create the missing middle 80 to 100%, as well as we understand the need for so-called affordable for sale, and that is a equation yet to be figured out. But we understand that unless we diversify financing options, HHFDC's bond LIHTC program combined with 9% cannot provide for all the housing pipeline that is coming down. Hence, you see from what we develop and what is in our pipeline, and as you heard from the previous developer as well, diversifying financing structures is the only option to address the backlog that we now have in the pipeline. Forum partners sitting next to me, Chris.
Just local developer, been in Honolulu all my life, and excited to be working with Mo. Most of my history has been in developing sort of market and entry level condominiums, mixed use projects, and focused the last 3 years on affordable housing, and excited to be working with HPHA.
So previously, aside from the HPHA Kalimomi, just to kind of give you a brief overlook, many of these projects HHFDC is very familiar with, financed by HHFDC as a partner, very successful communities. So you could see our kind of geographic dispersion throughout 3 of the 4 counties. We kind of went over this. Let's skip that. This is the Kalimomi. These are the sites. None of these sites are what is shown on the previous slide. These are non-HPHA sites, and these are HPHA sites. So quite a bit of work going on here. In partnership and working closely with HHFDC, Mayor Wright has been already entitled, and one of the first HPHA sites in neighbor islands in Kauai, in Kapa'a, has been entitled last year. Today, we're before you working on Ka'ahumanu homes, and you will also be seeing Lanakila homes, all which we're working through with HHFDC. So a significant partnership between 2 state agencies, HPHA and HHFDC, to really get all these sites in the position to move forward for financing and eventually move forward for working drawings. Update.
So I'll go relatively quickly because we have a lot of slides. As you know, it's about 7.5 acres. Kahumanu Homes is incredible opportunity to redevelop an area, situated right in the urban core, in between 2 rail stops. It's currently zoned A1. It's in the TOD for both Kalihi and Kapalama. 152 existing units that were built back in 1958, spread among 19 buildings. So again, we're really excited about this opportunity, as is HPHA. When we started working on the plans, HPHA had actually been working on them for a couple of years before we got involved. When we did, one of the first things we did with HPHA was went back and really looked at all of the TOD work that had been done since about 2011. A lot of outreach with the community that the city had done. So we went back and looked at all of those studies, looked at the comments, and really decided how we're going to incorporate all of these things to, work with the community, provide what they want. Well, one of the great items, again, as I talked about, it's centrally located. There's a lot of great parks in the area, great schools. There's job centers. It's close proximity to downtown, the airport, the harbor. So truly, a wonderful opportunity. And then with the rail, it makes it even better. One of the interesting things, if you look at this rendering, this was out of I think it was the 2011 TOD plans that the city had come up with. And you can see in orange what they were envisioning for some of the density that was going to come in here as rail was developed. We're going to share a slide with you a little further down that shows this a little more informed and updated with what we're doing, as well as a few of the other developers in the area. Out of that visioning, though, a lot of great things, as we all know. TOD, what makes the urban density work is when you have great areas on the ground floor and great amenities. So we really spent a lot of time focusing on plazas and places where people come out of their homes and get into the community and make memories with their neighbors, with other people from the extended community. A lot of focus on art, dog parks, rec areas, commercial, all of these things, community services that make a project a community. With that, we set about master planning. One of the interesting things we wanted to focus on as well is adjacent to Kahumanu Homes. If you look at the lower left, you can see Kamehameha Homes. That is another HPHA site that will be redeveloped as part of the Kalemomi. But with Kahumanu Homes going first, we wanted to make sure that they integrate with each other when Kamehameha Homes eventually is developed. So we focused on creating, you can see on the right there, sort of a pedestrian access area that connects up to the upper left where Kamehameha Homes is, and then down to the right, Waikimilo, which is kind of the main commercial street dragging through the area on the way to the rail stops. We do have this large sort of Pico area in the middle there, which is, we have it labeled as mall, but you can see in red where we have commercial designed along Waikimilo. And then internally in some of those blue areas, those are some of the community services we envision, not only for our community here in Kahumanu, but the adjacent communities as well. So out of that, we came up with a program that provides for 1,550 mixed income homes. Deconcentrating poverty is a big part of the program and one of the things that HPHA is passionate about. So we have 3 different sort of initial product types: LIHTC, the missing middle with tier 2, and then the for sale component was talked about. 6 buildings and anywhere from studios up to 3-bedroom units. Lots of amenities, community areas that you'll see as we move into some of these other. This gives you an idea of the phasing. It's a little bit tricky. We have to, work with what buildings we're bringing down and demoing as we do this, and it's not exactly, one for one, if you will. But phase 1 in the upper right, and then we kind of correspondingly move across developing the property on the Mackay side, and then come down to the Mauka side, come down to the Mackay side, and work our way from Waikimilo back towards the middle school. The first phase will take up 5 buildings. We're going to demolish 40 existing buildings, but we're going to replace it with over 300. So that's one of the beauties. Units, yeah. Again, this kind of shows you the focus on phase 1 and 2. Our hope is that they will be developed together, but we have designed this similar to what we did at Po'okina, where they can be developed separately, again, based on the financing. There's about 10,000 square feet, a little over, of amenity space, clubhouse, community rooms, commercial along the front on Waikimilo as well. The initial park area at the bottom will be developed with phase 1 and 2. Just to give you some context, this is if you're kind of the Palama KS campus is on the left here. If we were hovering above that, you can look and see obviously downtown Honolulu on the left. We've added mayor right housing. You can see in gray there, and then the harbor. And then as you come over that gray area in the middle is KS's Palama Kai plans. And then on the right there, red is Kahumanu Homes. And you can see how we've oriented the towers, Malcolm Mackay. And we're sandwiched between the 2 rail stations, which is really a great opportunity. This is similar to that slide that we had showed earlier that shows, again, some of what this TOD development and density will look like. You can see Kamehameha Homes down here on the left next to Farrington High School, and then our Kahumanu Homes, that initial plan for the 6 buildings. And then as you see, Kapalama, Kai, KS, and then our mayor, right? Looking at phase 1 and 2 here, right at Waikimilo Road on the Mackay side looking down. On the left, LIHTC, over 300 units, and on the right is planned to be LIHTC as well. They share a parking garage. This shows filling in the remainder of the balance. phase 3 on the right, 4 on the left, and 5 and 6 are obscured from view. This is a little bit of a different angle. Would be over Kamehameha Homes looking Mackay. So you can see that secondary sort of Pico area that we have where we're planning like a community pool drop off. Our hope is that we'll have a preschool in here, other community services sort of sprinkled throughout. You can see some of the rec decks like in between phase 1 and 2 that we have, some of the solar above the parking areas. This is White Camilo looking Eva, but right in the middle, this is really our kind of Pico area for the whole community. We envision this to be, very active, to have community services at the back there at the base of the parking garage, sort of retail on those front 2 corners, drop-off areas. We hope to have, we'll block off the streets maybe once a month or once a quarter, have festivals, food trucks, music, things of that nature. A little bit of a closer shot coming in, kids play areas. We're going to have dog parks. Again, all of these things that make TOD development great. This is looking Malka. Obviously, that's one of our streets that runs Malka Mackay. Again, we look to have areas where we're going to kind of green them off and have events and really pull in neighbors. The 201H exemptions. This is typical of the ones we've been asking for most of our projects. I won't go through them independently. And with our residents, Mo?
So before we continue, I want to make a correction for the record. The question that was asked by the chair regarding the land acquisition. Not sure why it was termed that way. Project management informed me it's actually site demolition and remediation. So it should get into the construction budget. That's an item that we discussed with HPHA, but that's not the correct category for it to go.
Thank you.
It's totally for remediation, so I stand corrected on that. The relocation is something that is very important because while we're all about providing affordable housing for residents, we need to take into consideration that these communities have existing residents. It's a very, very sensitive. The most important thing here is the fact not only that they reside there also, but the benefits they get from residing in public housing, where they're getting basically the comparable of a Section 8 based, where they're only paying a portion of the rent, that which they can afford. So it's not only about finding homes. How do you protect that specific aspect? And under HUD rules, any public housing that is demoed, once we get all the approvals from HUD, the project-based subsidy converts to what's called a tenant protection voucher, a TPV, which is actually, at least in my opinion, fantastic opportunity because the resident that can only get that benefit by only living there can take that voucher and move anywhere they want to move. That process is also aided by a professional third-party relocation company that assesses each family needs as to size, where their jobs are, where their schools are, and then they keep that voucher with them. They obviously have to requalify on an annual basis, but they can move to another public housing community. They can move anywhere they want, and beyond that, if they choose to move again, as long as income qualify, they keep that voucher with them. It's a fantastic opportunity rather than, as we talk about deconcentrating poverty, only having to live in one spot versus being able to live wherever you want in the state of Hawaii. Additionally, if they choose to return after the project is developed, and in some cases when we've had resident meetings, many feel they've grown up there and feel a connection and want to come back and live there. So they can bring that voucher and they come back. So that provides significant protection for the benefit that the residents are there and keeps that benefit within the community at large, whether they are outside or return back to the community. In addition, there are relocation expenses, meaning the cost to relocate out of the property. That is part of the development budget to cover their relocation costs. So from that perspective, that is important. No construction activity will start unless the residents are relocated. An important factor, as we know, we're all dealing with a significant housing crisis. So part of the phasing, aside from financing availability and many other things, is, as you notice, Chris was explaining that we're doing demo on 5 buildings, which result in 40 units. And your very first tower is going to put approximately 300 units. So that helps those. So the tough part is that first phase always where to relocate. But by doing such a large concentration, what it does, not only does it help those that wish to return, but as we start doing relocation on subsequent phases, That's why phasing is important. Like I said, there are many factors, but the most important factor is the residents, because there is a problem. Where do we relocate to? And being able to tell them, you're just gonna basically, in theory, put it on a dolly and walk down the street is a favorable situation. Hence the intent to rephase. So that's kind of relocation there. I know this is an important and sensitive subject. Are there any questions on relocation before I move to the next slide? If not,
How long will you anticipate tenants will be out of their existing units before they have an opportunity to return?
for construction period, it's 2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah.
It's
2.5 to 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, these, it's large with the podium. We typically project 30-month construction. So it's around that 2.5 to 3.
And the subsidies that they'll be available to the relocated tenants will extend at least that long or longer.
They are with them permanently. That tenant protection voucher is theirs. It is not connected to their return there or not. So if they choose not to return, as long as income-wise they qualify, it becomes basically a mobile Section 8 voucher or the comparable of that. There's very strict names under HUD, so it's called TPV. They insist that we call it that. It just becomes a permanent voucher. Like anybody who has a mobile Section 8 voucher, they can do a private property, private residence, whatever they want. So no impact. But the key is, like anything, they have to submit income qualification, make sure they're still below a certain income to qualify for that benefit.
Chair.
Yes, very helpful.
I noticed you have a fair number of studios. Was there any consideration of 4-bedroom units in this? Because we have large families in Hawaii, and they face an additional challenge in finding housing. I know that's a challenge in terms of getting the units you need to. What were the thoughts in putting in studios versus?
So when you look at like most of our 3 and 4 bedrooms that we've designed on any of the projects, on KLM ones in particular, and at Mayor Wright, we have quite a few 4 and 5 bedroom units. Here on site, there's only studios 1, 2s, and 3s. So as we look at a lot of the replacement that we have to replace these one in addition to the ones we're adding, we've kind of mirrored what was existing within the community. It's not to say that we wouldn't consider, 4 and 5 bedrooms. I mean, we do know from a scoring standpoint, obviously that helps with allocations. We do know that there's a need. So I think it's something open at looking at, but as of now.
So, yeah, so there's when we talk about relocation in unit, there's a requirement of a 1-for-1 replacement. So when there are 4 and 5 bedrooms, Mayor, that was a perfect example that Chris mentioned. We've provided 4 and 5 bedrooms. Same thing, I think, in Kauai, Kapaa, we had 4 bedrooms, which we approved. We made sure we had a 1-for-1 replacement. 4 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms are difficult because of the rent size. So if you look at 60% rent for a 4 and 5 bedroom, it's quite high. And you start looking and competing not at comparable apartment units, but you actually start competing and looking at rental homes. And when we've looked at in different states, we had to do a separate market study to show that those rents are below the rents for a single family home. So really, I think when we're hitting that target, we should be looking at a different transition type of product. So for this one, because there are no 4-bedroom and 5-bedroom families we're displacing, we're not doing that. In the case of Mayor Wright and other communities, there are 4 and 5 bedrooms. We're making sure we're preserving the 1-for-1. Even though the residents that move from the 4-bedroom and the 5-bedroom may take the voucher we just described and decide to go rent a single family home, we are still creating those units so that if they return or if they don't, it's available. But 4 and 5 bedrooms is a tough equation in an apartment community. From just not necessarily density, but really from the rent amount, even when it's restricted, it's very high. And we find that these families tend to go towards trying to find a single family home to rent, even though an older one, from space perspective and numbers perspective. So that's kind of the balance we have to look at.
I would add to that too, given that these are high rises with podium parking, makes it kind of exponentially tougher. It's much easier and probably better way to bang for your buck with your dollars if you're doing the 4s and 5s in a WIC product with surface parking. It's much less of a construction cost, and so that helps minimize that, the cost between building it and renting it.
Yeah, it's a market. I mean, to HHFDC's credit in the QAP, one way they look at efficiencies by square foot, which actually encourages larger bedroom units. So that's good because that recognizes the need there, and we respect that. But again, I think 4 and 5 bedrooms is just tough from a market perspective. So we will do it when there's a 1-to-1 replacement.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the questions. Anyone else? Are you done with the presentation?
I mean, we can go through
Do you want
incomes.
to, sure.
We have incomes, which I think the board is very familiar with. That's what we did, but I don't think we need to go through that. It's the typical 0 to 80. And then process and schedule, we'll do that real quick.
Yeah, so we're looking, obviously, hopefully if we receive approval today, we'll be in front of DPP directors meeting. We're gonna have a public meeting in January, and the hope is that obviously we'll be entitled by February. If we're able to get it if and when we do receive an award, if it were August of 25, we would start construction hopefully in 2027 and have people moving in 2029. So.
We mentioned city zoning. For city zoning.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Mo. Thank you. We did, as a courtesy, and we did this last year with Mayor Wright. I mean, even though we're doing this under the emergency proclamation and we're not required to go to council, we have gone to council as a courtesy and updated them. So we went to the zoning committee and it was well received. So now we'll do the public meeting with DPP director in January, and then after that, hopefully there would be sign on.
It allows council members to provide comment, even though the system is different, but we found that to be very well received and appreciated.
I would like to add one additional item. I must say, the HHFDC staff has been absolutely unbelievable to work with. These past 2 years, we've entitled almost 5,500 units, and it's always been a fire drill last minute. And I can't say enough about Michelle, Randy, Albert, kind of everybody here, David, everyone that we've worked with has been incredible. They've worked weekends. They've worked on incredibly short time frames, and I've honestly never had an experience like this. And I commend you all very much. And I hope you recognize how good this staff is, because they've bent over backwards for us. We would not be here in the situation we are without the work that they've done. So thank you all very much.
I would echo strongly Chris's comments. HHFDC does not behave as an allocating agency. They are, but they actually behave as a partner in further development of affordable housing on both aspects that we work with in planning as well as in financing, trying to find solutions, hard work and commitment. We have not seen that. It's very rare in agencies putting the times, and they've put times on weekends and
vacations, weekends, nights,
So,
they've gone above and beyond.
We want to express the gratitude for that. We are under pressure to develop and to produce and to entitle and to put HHFDC on the team. But I believe our development team and your team has worked hand in hand, and we can proudly tell the governor and those that asked for this initiative that HHFDC and the development team, but you are part of the development, has delivered because of the numbers. These numbers are unparalleled in the state's history, unparalleled. And that is because of your team's commitment and hard work. We would not be where we are today, no matter how hard we work, if they did not work equally, if not harder than we do. So I thank them very much for that commitment.
Appreciate the kind words for staff. And you have our concurrence. Just as a side note, Mo, I'm glad you have some help because you have a lot of projects on your plate.
Yes, we're proud of our partners very much, and I think we're proud of our HHFDC partners and our HPHA partners. It takes a village, but I think we now we just got to figure out how to finance them so we can get started.
Yes. Anyone else have questions? Board members? Okay, if not, all those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed?
Aye.
We got Jason there. Hearing none,
Aye, yeah.
motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll next go to agenda item 3C. This is to approve an additional amendment to the dwelling unit revolving fund equity pilot DEP program allocation and quantity of designated DEP units for the Kuile Place housing project located at 2599 Kapiolani Boulevard, Honolulu, Hawaii, TMK numbers 2-7-022, 011, 015, and 031 and 049. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. We do have a second. Good morning. Is there anyone in the public would like to offer testimony on this agenda item? Okay, if not, we'll, you'd like to go ahead and present. Oh, is there someone, do we have,
Yeah, just real briefly. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mark
sorry.
Anthony Clemente, on behalf of the Hawaii Regional Council of Carpenters, just standing by our written testimony and support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Lorna Komitani with the Development Branch. This for action seeks to amend the board's prior approval for additional DEP units and allocated funding for the Kuile Place project. In August of this year, the DEP program units increased by 5 for a total of 28 units in the Kuile Place project, effectively creating opportunity for 5 more qualified purchasers to enter into home ownership with a 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit. A summary of sales is provided in the table in section C as of November 25th. 25 of 28 units were contracted, with 4 additional units in process with the sales team, projecting 1 DEP unit short for the potential qualified buyer. The DEP program continues to gain traction in the Kuile Place project and with other developers in the community. Marketing activities have continued, including participation in large-scale housing venues like the Priced Into Paradise Expo. In October, HHFDC received the developer's request for additional DEP units and allocation. Based on target unit sales as outlined in section 3B, staff proposes an additional increase of 7 units for a sum of $723,100. This results in 35 total units and allocated funding for the Kuile Place project as indicated in the table in section 3B. The table in section 3C is an overall summary of the DEP program allocation to date. The HHFDC intends to return to the legislature in January to request that the program be made permanent and that the additional funding to continue implementing this innovative program promoting homeownership. Recommendation is made that an increase for the project in the quantity of DEP units by 7 and the allocated DEP funds corresponding to that amount be made to assist qualified purchasers to enter into home ownership and for professionals specifically who work in occupations facing a shortage in Hawaii, and to authorize the executive director to take all necessary actions to effectuate this purpose of this action. Developer Alana Pakala is here to give an update on the project.
Sure, why don't you come on up?
Thank you so much. I thought I'd give a brief update of the DEP program overall and of course answer any questions and then give an overall update on the project. So the DEP program has been really incredible to witness. And so since we launched the program, we've had 121 HHFDC applications. 67 or 55% of them were in the target professions for the DEP. Actually, an update from our original update in November, actually the last DEP unit has been contracted. So all 28 are contracted with two more applications in process as well. But additionally, the interesting data is that 34% of the 67 apps that were in the target professions that didn't contract a DEP unit, actually contracted another HHFDC unit. So the DEP program brought them in the door. They're like, wow. And then they realized that they could stretch to actually afford a HHFDC, a typical HHFDC unit. So that's been a really positive byproduct of the program as well. So I thought that the target professions would be interesting to hear. 51% have been in healthcare, followed by education at 39%, law enforcement at 9%. We still have 0 apps in agriculture, but we are doing our best to get the word out in those realms. Yes, and of the 23 DEP qualified purchasers that ended up buying other units, they all basically bought larger units. They bought a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. So yeah, I would just say it's been really inspiring to see this program at work, because it's creating an opportunity for homeowners that would not be able to be a homeowner otherwise. Obviously, the program itself is so wonderful, but this overlay is really making a difference. So we really appreciate it and would love to support any efforts to turn it into a permanent program. And then transitioning to the overall project, the great news is we're approaching 85% sold of our HHFDC units. So we have 94 HHFDC units left on the market of the 603. We are, and we actually only have 12 market units. So the project is sold very well. We've already begun our construction activity. We actually barricaded the property and started our completed our hazmat and are transitioning. We intend to transition to demolition next month and going vertical in February. Oh, and one last piece that I just thought would be interesting for, or maybe interesting, is that actually, so the project has turned out to be 85% owner occupant. And 15% right now are investors, but 0 second homes. They're all intended to be long-term rentals. They're local investors that intend to rent long-term. So really, as we look at the makeup of Kuilei Place, it will realistically be like 100%, Kama Aina occupied, which is pretty exciting. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Yes, directors, question? I do have one question. I don't know if it's for Lorna or maybe for Dean, but with the request that's going into the next legislative session for permanency of the program, are you considering expanding the definition for professions that could be benefited through the program?
Yes, the legislation that's being proposed, it says that HHFDC may basically define which occupations, the criteria. That gives us flexibility long-term to determine if there should be preference given, or say a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day window, and opening up to the general public, or whether to expand the occupations also to others.
Great, thank you. Answered my question. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I guess we can call for the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Anybody need a break? No. All good. Okay, let's go on to item 3D. This is for information. And this is information on a strategic plan for the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. And I guess, Dean, will you present on this?
Yes, I'll be presenting on this. So thank you, board members, for the past 6 or 7 months. I've been working with on preparing the strategic plan for HHFDC. We started preparing this because we're tasked with doing many different initiatives, and we always get requests to stand up new programs. So thought that a plan was needed to focus the agency's efforts, and also to set this realistic expectations of what we could accomplish in the next couple of years. So this strategic plan, shows a guideline on initiatives that we will undertake for the next 3 years. Up and down. Up there. Yep. So. So you might ask, what is a picture of this kind of feature doing in a strategic plan presentation? And what this is, it's what's called a C-squared. And the life of a C-squared is very interesting. It starts off as like a tadpole type of creature, which has a very primitive brain and a central nervous system. What it does is, very early in its life, it attaches itself to a structure. And something really interesting happens. When it attaches itself to a structure, it becomes fixed, and it loses its brain, it loses its central nervous system, and it just becomes, I don't know what you'd call it, but like a patch structure. And the analogy here is that at HHFDC, we're very mindful that we cannot become fixed in our ways. That we have to adapt because the landscape of housing is constantly changing. But at the same time, we need to manage change. We need to focus our efforts on things that are, or efforts that are most impactful. So that is the purpose of preparing a strategic plan. And this chart here just shows, the process of managing change. And I thought it was very important that we consider these aspects, because it's one thing to say that, okay, we're going to take on different initiatives, but to really jump into something, knowing what you're getting into, you have to consider these 5 different aspects, the vision, skills, incentives, resources, and action plan. Vision is, what is the agency's vision? Why are we undertaking a change? What is our purpose? Skills means, what is the skill set of the staff? What new programs could they undertake? Incentives, is staff willing to undertake a change? Resources, that could be staffing, funding, or equipment. And an action plan, which says that for each initiative, how will that initiative be undertaken? And on the right-hand side, it shows what happens if you're missing any of those elements. So, for example, if you're undertaking a change but don't have a vision, leads to confusion. Why are you doing this? If staff don't have the skill set to undertake a change, leads to anxiety. If staff don't buy into a change, it happens gradually. Of course, if you don't have resources, if the staff buy in, they have the vision, but they don't have the resources to undertake the change, they get frustrated. Of course, if you don't have an action plan, it leads to a false start. So when we started the strategic planning effort, we considered these 5 elements and to ensure that any initiative that we're proposing is actionable. So starting off with our mission statement, and our state that I was surprised myself that when I started this effort that we don't really have a concise vision statement or mission statement in HHFDC. And this is something that Chris Woodard pointed out, or he wanted to amend our bylaws for a number of years because he recognized we don't have a clear and concise mission statement. That surprised me because I've given many presentations saying that our mission is, and I found out, well, that was just something made up by prior directors and it was never formalized. So this is what our mission statement is right now, and it's very wordy. It references the former Housing and Community Development Corporation, which has not been in existence for over 20 years. So we feel that it's time to refresh our mission statement. So this is what we're proposing. Basically, that the mission of HHFDC is to advance housing opportunities for Hawaii residents, because this is something that staff should be able to just say in one sentence. If someone asks you, what do you do? Well, this is what we do. This is our mission. If staff or if the board is agreeable to this, we'll be amending our bylaws, as Chris would have wanted, to adopt this mission statement. Well, the strategic plan sets forth goals, objectives, and initiatives for the next 3 years. We have 7 goals, and for each goal, there are various objectives and initiatives for each goal. So the first goal is to increase the supply of rental housing. And the 3 objectives listed here, again, those explain how we achieve the goal, and the initiatives are specific actions. So I don't have the initiatives listed for each goal. I've only listed the objectives. The initiatives can be found in your board packet in the draft of the strategic plan. For example, for this goal, some of the initiatives that we have listed are updating the QAP and RHRF bond program to prioritize projects that are shovel ready and make them efficient use of our financial resources. Creating a mixed income RHRF sub-account for workforce rental housing. Investigating new financial models to finance rental housing projects. Engaging our stakeholders in discussions to determine the needs and resources available to identify gaps in funding. And pursuing funding from other agencies to provide long-term financial support for supportive services. Goal 2, increasing the home ownership rate. As you're all aware, this is a new focus for HHFDC. We're standing up the down payment program, the mortgage program, their equity program, which we just spoke about with Freeway Place, is another home ownership program. So this is a new emphasis for us, given the high interest rates and the demand by Hawaii residents to find, not just rental housing, but housing that they can own and call their own. So some of the initiatives here are some having come well on their way, such as the down payment and mortgage programs and the DERF equity program, making that permanent. And also, we plan to become more engaged in supporting for sale housing at the county level. We've been fairly hands-off when a 218 project comes to us and it goes to the city council. We're going to be more proactive going forward and lending their support, our support to the project at the council level. And also pursuing leasehold condominium development on state land. Third goal is proactively developing housing projects. We've been doing this on state lands and we'll continue to do this to look for opportunity on state lands. We're also taking the next step in the Iwele Kapolama area. We're in discussions with a consultant to take the next step of that infrastructure plan and seeing how we can help expedite the planned housing projects in the area by coordinating the various developers and the city on providing infrastructure for those projects. We're looking at the possibility of infill development on private lands and also looking at the feasibility of alternative construction methods that could be applied locally that could reduce the cost of housing, which could make housing projects more feasible for whether it's for rental or for sale projects. The fourth goal speaks to our own operations, maximizing our effectiveness. How can we become more efficient and mission focused? So a large part of this is exiting from we call our non-core activities, such as maintenance infrastructure in Kapolei, maintenance infrastructure in Waihole. So we are in discussion with the city for them to take over infrastructure in Kapolei. And of course, our long-term goal in Waihole, our big manpower and financial drain, there's the water system. So we are working on replacing that water system and to a standard that the Board of Water Supply will accept. So they will, when the project is completed, it will become a Board of Water Supply system, not something that we have to maintain. Leveraging technology to improve our efficiency. There's quite a bit of work being done on artificial intelligence. Later we've asked for a budget ceiling increase to adopt what's called, Microsoft Copilot. I think that's something that could help us in many ways, and drafting letters, memos, helping to review reports. So it's a way to make our staff more efficient. Documenting our processes to ensure uniform standards are being followed. Something that we have done to various degrees here. It's going to be a concerted effort to document what our processes are so that as staff leave, as there's a transition, that the processes are known for the successors. And promoting opportunities for staff training and development. Our staff, they are our greatest resource here. And again, the housing landscape is constantly changing. And it's really great opportunity for staff to attend conferences or workshops so that they can see what other agencies are doing. I think great examples of David has gone to several workshops and conference by the National Council of State Housing Agencies. It's a great place to network and see what other states are doing. We can bring those ideas back to them. And last, providing leadership training for succession planning. We have a bench in some areas. We need to develop a deeper bench. But doing so entails training staff to step up into leadership roles. You can't assume that just because someone has been doing their job for several years, that they can step up to the next level. They need to be trained so they are ready to take on those added responsibilities when they're called upon. Next goal is eliminate barriers to housing. So the objectives are listed here. Some of the initiatives are seeking policy changes by working with our YIMBY group, which we co-chair with HPHA, working directly with legislators, and coordinating infrastructure development, such as in the Isole, Kapalama area. And also education, talking to policy members, legislators, council members about policies that they could pass to promote affordable housing. Next goal is to preserve the existing inventory of affordable housing. We historically relied on the LIHTC program to fund rehab of affordable projects. But as you're aware, we are very much oversubscribed on LIHTC. So we are looking at new programs that we could stand up to incentivize owners to upgrade their property, and by providing those resources to commit to a longer term affordability period. This could be for either LIHTC projects or what's called naturally affordable housing projects. And the last goal relates to Maui's recovery. Recovery is going to take many more years. For permanent housing, we are involved with the Front Street Apartments project. And in the longer term, we could also develop permanent housing at the village of Leali, in particular that site where the FEMA project is being built right now. Water and sewer capacity are the primary constraints to providing permanent housing on West Maui. It's available. We'd like to use CDBGR funds for infrastructure development, working with the county on that. They will probably be the lead on developing infrastructure. And we could assist with providing permanent housing projects and also standing up programs which assist homeowners and renters to find housing in Lahaina. And also for the interim housing project, we of course have the Hollywood EA project, the Hagai Institute. We'll continue to work with the county on renovation of that project. Again, that project has been leased to the county, but they don't take possession until May of next year. We'll continue to work with the county on an RFP so they can issue, get a developer on board to rehab that hotel into workforce housing rentals. So that, in summary, is the strategic plan. This is something that the board is interested in, that would like to adopt formally. Can come back at a future date for formal adoption of the plan by the board. And if you have any comments on this, any suggestions, be very open to hear that.
So, yes, questions?
First of all,
Comments?
this certainly synchronizes with some of the charges that the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development has taken on. So we are a happy partner with HHFDC, especially in the area of looking at barriers to housing. Because we've got a federal grant called the Pro Housing Grant for $6.6 million over 6 years to identify more of those barriers. Now, there's been a lot of work done in that area. Your Hero has done a report fairly recently and others on that. But we find that for every barrier, there is a stakeholder group that is, I see the chair nodding. Yes, there is. It worked hard to get that in place, possibly several decades ago. And so that being able to partner with HHFDC, HCDA, the governor's housing team, HPHA on figuring out which ones of those barriers we can get enough momentum to and reassurance to the folks that are deeply worried that somehow, that change is going to be threatening to something that they value is important. I noted on your first chart that you put the staff's needs as a central thing. I was almost alarmed when Mo was talking about those evenings and weekends and vacations that the HHFD staff devoted to trying to meet some of the time pressures, in part because no staff can continue to do that on an ongoing permanent basis. So I hope that's episodic and not because that it's challenging. It is challenging. There are many demands on staff, so very grateful that the staff were willing to do that. I wish I could say it was just episodic. The demand is always there. Yeah. Well, I suppose bringing those other elements into play, the vision, the resources, will help to make that buffer that and make it workable. So, Chair, those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Doug.
I like the way you went with the mission statement. It's real precise and to the point, and I like technology nowadays, with the AI. I mean, it really helped me a lot when I had to do projects to start. And a lot of times, I get writer's block. Just how do we start? And yeah, so if you could look into efficiencies and maybe help the staff so they don't have to spend the weekends and the holidays and whatnot.
It's really interesting what you can do now with AI.
Yeah.
Adobe Acrobat, you can have it summarize a document for you.
Right.
There's another tool that creates a podcast out of a PDF document, which is really interesting.
It's kind of scary.
Which is why, you gotta make sure that you read the document also, make sure it's summarized correctly.
Right. The fact check before you send it out.
Yeah.
I think putting that together.
Yeah, well, it's obvious that a lot of work went into putting this strategic plan together, and I guess what I want to do, put it out to the board if they want to entertain a floor action, at this meeting, whenever feel it's ready and appropriate to do so.
Could be ready
Would you-
next month if the board desires.
Yes, everyone else.
Certainly think the board's endorsement of the strategic plan would be a clear signal to your staff that we're on board with this. I wouldn't want to put it in a format that looked more like a rule that then would become frozen in place. I don't know. Some of you may not be familiar with how difficult it is to change rules adopted by, state agencies and the governor. It's harder than changing legislation, which is why you often find legislation moves down into the level of detail simply because it's simpler than changing rules. So a statement of endorsement would be my preference rather than trying to make it into something that becomes rigidified.
Appreciate the insight. Chapter 92, you're referring to.
Yeah.
That's all. Yes.
I would agree with Mary Alice that, board endorsement would go a long way to helping get the mission up to the staff. But also, having recently got through confirmation, this is something that the legislator and Senator Chang has expressed his interest in seeing as well. So this is very good.
You're an optimist. If you think you could.
Okay, we don't have to take any action on this today, but why don't we have you come back bring this back to the board in January.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Get there. Okay. Thank you. And now we can, if everybody's okay, don't need a break yet, we can get into the executive director's report if you'd like to move into part of the agenda. That's item 4.
Update on April of Manu. You might recall this is a project that board considered in September where sales are lagging. So pleased to report that there have been 7 subsequent sales since September, which is an uptick in activity from prior months. We did set a threshold slightly higher at 10 units to be sold by December 30th. We'll see where the project is at that point before taking any further action. I'll note that the staff has been pretty involved in reaching out to the general public about our new homeowner financing programs. In the past with the LIHTC program, there's just a smaller group of developers primarily, so we didn't have to do a lot of outreach to those developers. But with the new programs that we're standing up, the down payment program, the mortgage program, the equity pilot program, those are targeted towards home buyers. So we've been making a concentrated effort to reach out to those potential first-time home buyers, let them know about our programs. So we went to the Pricing to Paradise Expo, also attended the Honolulu Board of Realtors winter meeting. Each event was attended by thousands of potential home buyers. I'd like to thank our staff, Gordon Pang, David, Roy, Lorna, and there are many others here helped to set up for those events to get the word out about our new programs. And we're getting a very good reception, both by industry partners, the banks, lenders, brokers, as well as, home buyers who are excited to see this happen. We've been exploring a programmatic agreement with SHIFT, which would set new procedures for housing projects. This would allow the provisions that were in the original housing emergency proclamation to be effective for housing projects. So basically, if projects being proposed in an area where there are or shifty fields or a low likelihood of finding remains or artifacts, you could proceed. If there's a moderate chance that there are be findings, then the project has to commit to archaeological monitoring. And it's only if a project has a high probability of finding artifacts such as in an area where findings have made previously, or there are sandy soils where there's higher prevalence of findings, then you have to do the archaeological inventory survey and go through the full process. So we're hopeful that we can come to an agreement on that with SHPD. For permanent supportive housing, note that that is a focus of the new House Speaker, Speaker Nakamura. So we've been involved in a working group that she has convened with other stakeholders, other agencies. We are pursuing an MOA, the Department of Human Services, which will allow us to apply for HUD funding. And we'll continue working in this task force to see what else we can contribute. But potential changes to the QAP could be made to support supportive housing. And lastly, I'll touch upon proposed legislation that we are proposing for next year. One is for state land use reform. The counties all do have long-range plans, whether it's a development plan or a county general plan, where they designate areas for future urban growth. This is something that the counties didn't do in, say, 1961, when the Land Use Commission was formed. So the counties have really taken the lead, grown their capabilities in long-term planning, land use planning. So what this bill would do is will require the State Land Use Commission to recognize as urban all those lands that the county themselves has identified for future urban growth. And again, the county goes through an extensive process of getting public feedback. Those plans have to be approved by the county council, so they're approved by legislative body. So we're proposing that basically that the Land Use Commission recognize that the planning framework has changed for the past, 50, 60 years. Second,
We're strongly in support of that bill. That's a bill that we think will recognize the county's due diligence in identifying those sites. And when you look at the maps, they're not large swaths of the ag district. They're usually, like on Oahu, 3 sides are already urban, So these are areas that have urban infrastructure, if not already on them. They probably have residential character already. It makes no sense to make these go through a contested case hearing, to gain that urban district designation. It makes no sense to make the people living there scofflaws for not doing commercial agriculture, when those areas that you see in the maps are really not suitable for commercial agriculture, because they're right, sandwiched in and next to already urbanized areas.
The effect of this would be to get a reclassification at the local level.
It will allow the counties to do
without the 15-acre or less, it would expand that to larger parcels potentially.
Instead of using a set number of acres, as has been tried in the past over the last maybe, 10 years of legislation, we're increasing that 15 acres or less to 25 acres or less, which could be anywhere, which could lead to spot zoning in the ag district. This bill does not set a number of acres. It just says areas designated for future urban growth through the county general plan and the county development plans, which go through, as any of you have worked with the counties, it goes through very extensive community engagement, planning commission meetings, and finally gets voted on by an elected body. So I'm hopeful that that it'll be able to move forward.
But we have your support.
Oh, sorry, was I a little too? We've been working with OPSD on hosting on this. Another bill is similar to what I said for the programmatic agreement with SHIP-D. If we're proposing a bill that will make that law in case we can't come to an agreement. Third is for the DERF Equity Pilot Program. To make this a permanent program, not a pilot program. Also tweaking it so as indicated earlier to give some flexibility on the target market for the program. And I'd also note for this that this could really be a way to incentivize for sale projects to get off the ground. This could be a vehicle for the state to provide its equities to projects. So it's not a grant to the project because, again, the state gets its equity back plus shared appreciation when the owner sells a unit. This could really be a way for the state to help provide its leverage to projects to help them to become more financially feasible, provide units that are affordable for Hawaii residents. And still, it's fiscally responsible because it's not a grant. State is getting a return on it.
It's also distributed throughout the community, so it means that this opportunity could be in, buildings that are privately market ones, which I think goes to our goal, of not concentrating poverty.
Yeah, and it's also, I appreciate you putting this in for the session because we hear a lot about how much workforce we're losing, leaving the state, and I think having a program that can incentivize people to stay and to qualify for their financing and raise their families in Hawaii, and it's a great outcome.
We also have a bill which would create an RHRF sub-account. The purpose of this is to provide dedicated funding for workforce rental housing. Right now, for the RHRF account, priority has to be given to basically light-tech projects. And so this account would create a separate funding mechanism specifically for tier 2 projects and other workforce rental housing projects. We have a bill that will provide a 10% of the conveyance tax for DERF, which would be roughly $5 to $6 million a year. The last bill would be to have establish a fiscal biennium credit line for the bond recycling program, or like a housekeeping measure. The legislature created one last year. For this fiscal year, we need to extend that for the biennium, so we can stand up the program, the bond recycling program.
Great. Questions? Yes.
For that home ownership programs, is there anywhere like on the website that we could provide so they could do some research on those programs?
On our website, there's a tab for I think it's called homeowners, information for homeowners. I know that has the DERF equity program there. Is there a mortgage and down payment programs on there yet?
Not yet. We have landing pages and URLs set up, but we're still finalizing a couple areas of the program. We're still waiting on the approved rules to be signed off by the governor. Once we get that and we're able to identify our underwriter, we'll have landing pages for those specific programs that we can direct the public to.
Okay. Information. Can you share them when they're ready?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Did you have anything else you wanted to present? Okay, no, thank you for your report. That brings us to our last agenda item, which is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.